For 21 years, two teenagers vanished without a trace from a small Tennessee town. Their families searched desperately. Police dug up wells, chased leads across state lines, and followed every rumor imaginable. But nothing worked. The case went cold, filed away as just another unsolved mystery destined to haunt a community forever. Then, in December 2021, everything changed. Not because of some breakthrough in forensic science or a deathbed confession, but because of a guy with a YouTube channel, some diving equipment, and an unshakable determination to find the missing. What happened next shocked investigators, devastated families, and proved that sometimes the answers we desperately seek are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough to look in the right place. Before we dive into this story, I need to ask you something. If you believe that ordinary people can make an extraordinary difference, type 1 in the comments. If you've ever wondered what happened to someone who disappeared, type 0. Your engagement keeps stories like this alive and helps bring attention to the thousands of missing persons cases still unsolved today. This is the true story of Erin Foster and Jeremy Bechtel, two young people whose lives were cut tragically short, and the YouTuber who finally brought them home. Two young lives full of promise. Let me tell you about Erin and Jeremy before they became headlines, before they became a cold case file, before they became a mystery. Because that's what they were first, real people with dreams, families who loved them, and futures that should have unfolded. Jeremy Lee Bechtel was born on November 7, 1982, in Smithville, Tennessee. His family remembers him as someone who lived for music and sports. He was the kind of kid who could pick up an instrument and figure it out through sheer determination, who played hard on every field he stepped onto, who made his parents proud not just with his talents, but with his character. Jeremy had that infectious energy that drew people to him, the kind of person who could light up a room just by walking into it. Erin Lee Foster was born on February 28, 1982, and from an early age, she was different from most girls her age. While her friends played with dolls, Erin was more likely to be found helping her father work on cars in the garage, getting her hands dirty with engine grease and learning how machines worked. Her family described her as a perfectionist, someone who wouldn't quit until she got things right, someone who took pride in doing quality work. But Erin wasn't just about mechanics and hard work. She had a softer side, too. She was the kind of older sister who made time for her younger brother, taking care of him when their parents couldn't be there. She helped her mother around the house without being asked. She was reliable, dependable, the kind of person families build themselves around. At 18 years old, Erin had plans. She wanted to become a mechanic professionally, to turn that passion she'd developed working alongside her father into a career. In the year 2000, that wasn't a common path for young women, but Erin didn't care about what was common. She cared about what she loved. Jeremy was 17, full of life and possibility. He had just spoken with his father, Ronnie, on the phone that evening of April 3, 2000. It was a normal conversation, the kind fathers and sons have 1,000 times, checking in, making plans, saying "I love you" without knowing it might be the last time. Both of them were living in Sparta, Tennessee, a small town where everyone knew everyone, where communities were tight-knit, where teenagers felt safe to go out at night without their parents worrying too much. It was the kind of place where tragedies like what was about to happen simply didn't occur. That's what made what happened next so unthinkable, so devastating, so utterly impossible to accept for the families and community that loved them. The night everything changed. April 3, 2000 started like any other evening for Erin and Jeremy. Erin spent time with her younger brother, Will, doing the normal sibling things, probably teasing each other, watching TV, talking about nothing important. Jeremy was on the phone with his father, neither of them knowing that conversation would haunt Ronnie for decades to come. Later that evening, Erin and Jeremy made plans to attend a party. They were young. It was spring. Life felt infinite the way it does when you're 17 and 18, and the whole world seems to stretch out before you with endless possibilities. The party was nothing unusual, just local teenagers gathering, probably some music, definitely some laughter, the kind of unremarkable social event that happens in small towns every weekend. They stayed at the party for a few hours, and by all accounts, nothing seemed wrong. They weren't fighting, they weren't upset, They weren't in any kind of trouble. They were just being teenagers, enjoying their evening, completely unaware that their lives were about to end. Around 10 p.m., Erin and Jeremy left the party. Erin was driving her 1988 Pontiac Grand Am, a car that wasn't flashy or new but was hers, probably something she'd worked on herself, knowing her mechanical skills. Jeremy was in the passenger seat. They headed back toward Erin's house, traveling along Highway 84, a road they'd driven countless times before. And then they simply vanished. No phone call, no goodbye, no warning. One moment they existed in the world, and the next moment they were gone, as if the night had swallowed them whole and refused to spit them back out. When Erin didn't come home that night, her mother felt that instinctive parental concern, the kind that makes your stomach drop and your heart race. But Erin's father, who was away on a business trip, wasn't immediately worried. 18-year-old kids sometimes stayed out late. Sometimes they crashed at a friend's house without calling. He figured she'd be home in a few days, probably with some story about losing track of time. But days passed, then a week, and Erin still wasn't home. Neither was Jeremy. That's when the Fosters finally contacted the authorities, and that's when this story really began. Not with answers, but with 21 years of agonizing questions that nobody could answer. An investigation that failed from the start. If you've ever wondered how cases go cold, how people can simply disappear in modern America with all our technology and resources, the investigation into Erin Foster and Jeremy Bechtel's disappearance is a textbook example of everything that can go wrong. The problems started immediately. First, there was the delay, a full week before the missing persons report was even filed. In investigations like this, the first 48 hours are critical. Evidence degrades, memories fade, trails go cold. By the time police got involved, an entire week of crucial investigative time had already been lost. But it got worse. According to the families, police never searched Erin's or Jeremy's bedrooms, places where teenagers keep diaries, notes, computers, anything that might provide clues about their state of mind or plans. They never questioned the friends who'd been at the party that night, the last people to see them alive. Basic investigative steps that should have been automatic simply weren't taken. The investigation stalled almost immediately. There were no witnesses, no forensic evidence, no crime scene to process. Erin's Pontiac Grand Am had vanished along with the teenagers. Nearly 2 tons of metal just gone without a trace. In a small town where everyone notices everything, somehow nobody had seen anything. Eventually, one lead emerged that seemed promising. Multiple witnesses reported seeing Erin in Pensacola, Florida. Several people claimed she was living and working there. Even a retired police officer said he recognized her from photographs. For investigators desperate for any shred of hope, this seemed credible enough to pursue. They traveled to Pensacola, showed Erin's photo around, talked to locals who claimed to have seen her. A thorough search was conducted across 2005 and 2006, 6 years after the disappearance. But despite all the supposed sightings, despite all the witnesses who claimed to recognize her, they found absolutely nothing. Erin wasn't there. She'd never been there. The lead was a dead end, another cruel false hope in a case full of them. Back in Tennessee, investigators were following darker possibilities. They dug up abandoned wells in White County after receiving a tip that the teens had been murdered and their bodies disposed of there. Nothing. In 2012, yet another well was excavated. Still nothing. A detective with the White County Sheriff's Office summed up the frustration perfectly. We've explored all the avenues that we know of, unless some more. Information is developed. We are not giving up on this case. But what he didn't say, what he couldn't say, was that they were out of options. Without forensic evidence, without bodies, without concrete witnesses, the case had nowhere left to go. 21 years of theories and heartbreak. When facts are scarce, speculation fills the void. And in Sparta, Tennessee, theories about what happened to Erin and Jeremy multiplied like wildfire. Maybe they'd been killed in a robbery gone wrong. Maybe it was a drug deal. Despite no evidence, either teen was involved with drugs. Maybe someone was jealous of their relationship and murdered them in a rage. Maybe they witnessed something criminal and were silenced. Maybe someone wanted Erin's car badly enough to kill for it. Or maybe, just maybe, they'd run away together, started new lives somewhere far from Tennessee, and simply chose never to come back. Each theory had its believers, and each theory kept the families trapped in a particular kind of hell, the hell of not knowing. Because without answers, grief can't complete its natural process. Hope can't fully die, but it can't fully live either. You exist in this terrible limbo where your loved one is simultaneously alive and dead in your mind, and you can't move forward because you don't know which reality you're living in. Jeremy's mother, Rhonda Ledbetter, never believed the runaway theory. She told reporters something that made perfect sense. You need money to go on the run. Both of them worked and neither picked up their last paychecks. None of their personal belongings are missing except what they had with them. She added something even more chilling. I don't believe they got out of White County that night. A mother's instinct proved tragically accurate. Detective Chris Eames stated that even if the pair had intended to run away that night, something likely happened before they could. For kids like that to stay gone this long and not contact any of their friends or family, he said, that's enough to make you think something is wrong. Years passed, then a decade, then 2 decades. The families grew older. Jeremy's mother provided her DNA to investigators in case unidentified remains matching her son were ever found. Erin's parents, following the painful but common pattern identified by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, declined to provide their DNA, not because they didn't care, but because providing DNA means accepting the possibility that your child is dead, and some parents simply cannot force themselves to take that step. Erin's ex-boyfriend remained a person of interest for years, though investigators emphasized he was never a suspect and always cooperated fully. But in a case with no answers, everyone becomes suspicious. Relationships strain, communities fracture, rumors destroy reputations. And through it all, 2 families waited for answers that seemed like they would never come. Enter Jeremy Sides, the unlikely hero. Jeremy Sides was born on October 2, 1979. After high school, he served in the U.S. Navy, then worked in the automotive industry. He was a regular guy living a regular life, until he discovered a passion that would change everything. In 2016, Sides started a YouTube channel to document his hobby, metal detecting. He'd spend weekends scanning beaches and fields, finding coins and jewelry and the occasional historical artifact. It was fun, relaxing, the kind of hobby that gets you outdoors and occasionally yields cool discoveries. But then, Sides branched out into diving, exploring underwater environments with the same enthusiasm he'd brought to metal detecting. He changed his channel name to Exploring with Nug. Nug being a joking nickname his friends had given him. And as he dove more, he started noticing something. There were a lot of cars underwater. A lot of them. That's when Sides made the connection that would define his life's work. Cars don't just disappear. 9 times out of 10, they're in the water. He started scouring missing persons databases, specifically looking for cases where someone vanished near a body of water. He invested in sonar technology. He learned to read waterways to understand how currents work, to identify where a car might plausibly end up if it went off a road, and then he started finding them. In October 2021, Sides discovered the truck of Thomas Thornton, a missing Vietnam War veteran. Inside was Thomas's body, finally giving his family closure after years of not knowing. The following month, he found the vehicle of Moran Hemphill, who'd vanished in 2005. In 2022 alone, Sides helped locate multiple missing persons. Alan Livingston, missing since 1983. Jason Spencer, who vanished in November 2022. Margaret Smith, last seen in April 2021. One by one, Sides was solving cold cases that official investigations had given up on. Police departments started paying attention. Families started reaching out. And eventually, Sides turned his attention to a case that had haunted Tennessee for over 2 decades, Erin Foster and Jeremy Bechtel. The discovery that changed everything. On November 24, 2021, Jeremy Sides began his search. He started with a lake near where Erin and Jeremy had attended that party on April 3, 2000. Using his sonar equipment, he detected a submerged vehicle. His heart probably raced. Could this be it? But when he investigated further, it wasn't Erin's Pontiac Grand Am. It was someone else's car, another mystery, but not the one he was searching for. Sides didn't give up. By this point, the White County Sheriff's Department had caught wind of his searches. He was documenting everything on his YouTube channel, making the investigation public in real time. The department didn't have access to the kind of sonar technology Sides was using, but they had something he needed: case files. And buried in those files was something critical: a misfiled report that had been overlooked for years. It contained more details about that party, including the fact that Erin and Jeremy had likely driven along Highway 84 on their way back to Erin's house. That small piece of information changed everything. On November 30th, Sides repositioned his search to the Cave Killer River, right next to Highway 84. His sonar pinged another vehicle, this one submerged in the river, but darkness was falling, and diving in those conditions would be dangerous. Sides made the agonizing decision to wait until morning. December 1st, 2021. Sides returned to the site, suited up, and plunged beneath the water's surface. The visibility was probably terrible. River water churned with sediment, darkness pressing in from all sides. But his lights caught something: metal, a vehicle, old, degraded, clearly underwater for years. As Sides got closer, he could make out the model, a Pontiac Grand Am. His heart must have stopped. This was it. After 21 years, after countless failed searches and false leads and abandoned wells, here it was, right under everyone's noses the entire time, waiting in the river for someone to find it. And inside the vehicle were human remains, 2 sets. Sides immediately contacted the White County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Steve Page, who'd made a promise to the Foster family that he would never stop looking for these kids, arrived at the scene. When he ran the license plate, the confirmation came through. This was Erin Foster's car. "I was in doubt until I got there and ran the tags," Page told the Washington Post. "I made a promise to the Foster family that as long as I was sheriff, I'd be looking for these 2 kids. I did. I have." The truth no one wanted: the bodies were positively identified as Erin Foster and Jeremy Bechtel. After 21 years of theories about murder, drug deals, jealous rage, and runaways, the truth turned out to be the simplest and most heartbreaking explanation of all: an accident. Investigators believe Erin lost control of the vehicle while driving along Highway 84 that night. In the year 2000, that section of road didn't have a guardrail. The car went off the road, plunged into the Calf Killer River, and sank quickly. Erin and Jeremy likely died within minutes, trapped in the vehicle as it filled with water. Sheriff Page's statement captured the tragic irony perfectly. "We've gone in wells, dug up areas, we've used ground-penetrating equipment looking for bodies, but it was right under our noses the whole time. It's heart-wrenching to know it was that simple, and it was made that hard because of all the rumors and horror stories through the years." For the families, the discovery brought both relief and renewed agony. Jeremy's father, Ronnie, said, "It's like losing him all over again. It just shattered my heart again. We always kind of thought through the years that something happened, but I just didn't know what." The families held separate funerals, but a joint memorial service for Erin and Jeremy, finally able to lay them to rest after more than 2 decades. But the timing was cruel. Jeremy's mother, Rhonda, who never believed the runaway theory, who always knew something terrible had happened, had passed away 4 years before her son's body was found. She died without ever knowing what happened to her child. Erin's father also passed away earlier that year, just months before the discovery. Jeremy Sides, the YouTuber who solved what police couldn't, said in his video, "I'm lost for words. I'm so glad I could find them. I'm so sad that that's where they ended up. I can't believe it's been over 20 years that they've been sitting there waiting for someone to find them." What this story teaches us: this case is a reminder of something we often forget. Sometimes the answers aren't complicated. Sometimes there's no conspiracy, no elaborate crime, no sinister plot. Sometimes tragedy is just tragedy. A moment of bad luck, a car going off the road, 2 young lives ended in an instant. But it's also a reminder that the people who go missing aren't just statistics. They're someone's daughter, someone's son. They're Erin, who wanted to be a mechanic. They're Jeremy, who loved music and sports. They're real people whose absence leaves holes in families that never fully heal. And finally, it's proof that ordinary people can make extraordinary differences. Jeremy Sides isn't a trained detective or a forensic expert. He's just a guy with a YouTube channel and a diving hobby who decided to use his skills to help people. And because of him, 2 families finally have closure. If this story moved you, please leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your reactions, your own experiences with loss or mystery. Like this video to help it reach more people, and subscribe so we can continue bringing attention to the missing and the forgotten. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember, sometimes the person who solves the impossible case isn't a professional. It's just someone who cared enough to look.